All right. Thanks for being here. Joseph Descans, writer, contractor, surfer. How do you see surfing influencing your writing? Do you use anything you learned in surfing in your writing?
Let's see. I'm just thinking sometimes I do a lot of the my life examples come from surfing. I do a lot of comparison in some of my let's say personal development stuff and overcoming fear and stuff like that. Is I draw a lot from surfing for that.
Do you think the fear in surfing is more from the wave or from sea monsters?
It's definitely from the waves. There's sea monsters out there. There's definitely sea monsters uh, right here where I surf in Del Mar. In 1 month, they tagged 51 great white sharks just at
Hmm.
the next beach over Torrey Pines. And so they're out there. We see them. I remember one day I was out there and I just saw this thing jump out of the water about 200 yards out, just out of the corner of my eye. And I'm all, was that what I thought it was? Like I got my friends sitting around, and they're all, we're going to pretend we didn't see that, because it jumped all the way out of the water and made a huge splash. And so we see them swimming around. So they're definitely out there. One day I went surfing and some guys were coming in as I was going out and I go, how was it? And they go, there's sharks out there. And I'm okay, well, how was it? How's the surf? And it turns out once I got out there, there was a great white and its baby just out past the surf line. So when the bigger sets, it wasn't very big, it was like 6 or 7 feet maybe on the sets. And so when the bigger sets came in, you could see the two fins going across the top of the wave. So
Hmm.
that's pretty close to where we were surfing. And so, if I had any feeling that they were after me, then I wouldn't be out there. But, you know, when they spot 51 of them in 30 days, they tag them and nobody's getting bitten, you kind of figure they're not after me. They're out there eating other things, seals and fish and whatever. So, I don't worry about it too much, but it is a thought in the back of my head.
Yeah, I've done some lifeguarding here in Northeast Florida, and there's a shark research place out near here, and I think I've seen an increase in shark activity since that's been open, just because they chum the waters a lot more to bring them in so they can tag them and then
Oh,
follow them around. So, and then when you look at the tags, you can see how many they are and where they go, but that's only the ones that are tagged. And then when you're out there swimming around, especially if you're under a pier or near anything like that, it's the sharks are always there. There's no question of if they're there. It's you see them and how big they are. The biggest one I've seen out here was sitting on a tower, and it was about maybe a 15 to 17-foot sand tiger that was inside the surf line. That was
wow.
right inside the breakers. So it's rare to see them that big, but then you don't, whistle everybody in and cause a panic, but
Right.
people see it because it's giant and it's out there swimming around, and you go, oh, okay, well, people will get the message. And then you got a few you got to wave in. And usually what I would do is walk down there. So I'm about knee deep in the water and just waving them in because they think you're just there to make them, not have a good time. But I just want to tell them something, but I don't want to tell them to look at the large fish while they're neck deep in the water. I want to wait until they're right beside me. So they get them in,
Right.
and then I just say, you can make your own decisions, not trying to spoil your fun, but I just want to let you know about the fish there. And then they see it, and then the panic sets in and they fall trying to get out. But seeing how fast a shark moves, because that one, we had one of those parasailers, the parachute things fly
Right.
over it, and the
Uh-huh.
shadow went over it, and it had been going back and forth between like 4 blocks inside the breakers, just feeding, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And then when that shadow hit it took off and it covered that 4 blocks faster than you could run. easily.
Right.
And I was like, oh, so basically, anytime you're in the water, if a shark wants you, they got you.
Right.
So you go with maybe try not to think about them all the time. Don't provoke them if you can avoid that, whatever provokes them. And then, try to go about your business. But they're definitely out there and all the time.
Yeah.
Something. Shark bumped a few times where they just check you to see what you're doing, especially in the water when it's you can't see because out here it's not you can't see the bottom usually.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah, that's when it's scarier too. But the day that, the 2 great whites were in the surf, um, I actually touched a shark on the inside. I was paddling out and I saw the fin. It was kinda coming my direction, and it wasn't a great white, it was something else, I'm not sure what it was, but, as it kinda went under, and then as I was paddling, I touched it. And so that was kinda interesting, you know? Obviously, it wasn't after me, but, I did touch it, so that was quite an experience.
yeah, so controlling the fear, that's pretty good. That make for some good writing because you got that inside knowledge of what fear is on that visceral level and how you deal with it, whether you get overcome by it or not. I think that's just good writing. Good to understand that perspective anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you get into writing from doing professional surfing and then I guess that came first and then the writing, or have you been writing all your life?
Well, I I I wrote a little bit. I was a pretty good writer. I was oh, yeah, one of my friends reminded me when I was in, what was it, middle school, um, that in 7th grade. Yeah, I had a friend that was in my class, and so when we turned in our projects, our writing projects, we kinda went back and forth. One day he would have the best story, and the other day I would have the best story. So, that's kinda the evaluation that our teacher gave us, and so he was reminding me of that a couple weeks ago. So that was I didn't really remember that. He remembered it, but I remember writing like, it when he mentioned it, I was starting to remember it. So I enjoyed writing back there, and it's, learning, words and how to describe things perfectly, I remember that fun that I had. I really enjoyed doing that, finding the right words, and as I look at younger writers now, I see them doing that, and maybe going a little bit overboard. They get caught up in like describing something perfectly, and
Mm.
sometimes it's irrelevant. Like you don't have to spend that much time on that. You're telling a story, so you don't have to describe the face, in that much detail. You just need to tell the story, and so it's kind of a I can remember myself doing that in my younger days.
Yeah, I like the writing because it teaches you how to think. And that's organizing your thoughts so you can describe something to someone else. It's all part of that process of learning how to think. And the more words you have, the more you can describe things and the more you're thinking about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, you learn to articulate your thoughts,
Mm.
and so then that helps because communication is always a challenge. The better you can communicate to anyone, just the better off you are.
Yeah. What's your writing setup like? Where do you do most of your writing?
Well, I have this chair downstairs that I sit in. In the morning, I go down there, I read my Bible, and sometimes when I'm thinking about stuff, I write, but I take notes. And so a lot of the times when I'm just reflecting and writing, so I've got this big sheep pillow that I put on my lap, kind of brings it up to brings my writing pad where it's comfortable, and then I'll write there. But then, of course, I've got my computer, my laptop up here set up in my desk, and sometimes I'll go down in the kitchen and just kind of write at the table. So that's the nice thing about laptops; you can go wherever you're comfortable. Sometimes I'll even take my kids surfing, And if I don't feel like surfing or if I got something I'm working on, then I'll just sit in the car and while they're out surfing and write in the car. So that's what's kind of cool about having the laptops is, get the battery charged up and you can go for a couple few hours out in the sun or wherever you want to go.
Hmm. Do you
So
schedule your time to write? Like, I know you have other times where you write, but do you have a certain time where you're like, I need to show up and do this on the regular so
r-
I make progress? Or is that when you just have a project you're specifically working on? Or is it
right,
always?
sometimes I do that. Sometimes I do that. So I remember, in writing my books, I wrote the book Hosea, the prophet who married a prostitute, and so that's my biggest project. And I remember, sometimes things are just flowing and you just go with it. And I would be doing stuff, working over the course of a week or two. I'd be thinking about a chapter or something, and then just sit down and write it pretty spontaneously. And then other times it's like you're you're stuck and you got to do something and you know where you want to go, you just don't know how to get there. And so I just force myself to sit down and just write. And so those are the tough times, right? Those are the tough times. Um, so as much as possible, we shoot for just the free flow and the inspiration. When the inspiration's going, you do it. And I usually tend to be best in the morning. Um, but then, at times it's like, okay, we're here, we're feeling like we're behind on this, so we're just gonna make it happen. And, so that's just kind of both ends of the spectrum there.
Do you set goals by like word count or time or subject? Like you want to finish a chapter, or how do you, when you have
Yeah,
those
yeah,
writing
that
sessions?
yeah, that tends to be the way it works. I have a chapter or a thought, a specific, something I want to tackle, and so, I'll set that as a goal. Yeah, definitely.
And do you use mainly the computer to do it, or do you use some other method of writing?
Yeah, I go back and forth. Obviously, I got on the plane, a month or so ago, and I don't like to take my laptop everywhere. And sometimes just having the pen and the notepad, it just feels a lot better. It's more comfortable. I don't know. It's just more relaxing. But you know, I got on the plane and it's like I sat down and just the juices started flowing, and I just wrote several pages, just kind of going after it. And toward the end of the flight, the guy next to me is all, "Oh, I see you're writing, blah blah blah." And so then he talked to me a little bit about my writing and stuff. But it seems to me like writing it on a notepad first kind of gets a better flow, kind of a free flow. It feels more comfortable. And then I'll sit down later and get it on the computer. Um, that tends to be what I like. But obviously there are times you just sit down and do the computer. So ask me that question again.
Yeah. So when you're writing, do you just write on the computer, or are you doing other things? And you were talking about writing on a notepad.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems to me that a lot of the time, just there's kind of a better flow, a better energy with me when I'm writing on a pad. It's kind of more relaxed. I'm not feeling pressure and just seems like the creative juices flow a little bit better. And then after I'm done with whatever I'm doing there, then later on I sit down and get it on the computer, and do the editing and stuff, but it feels like I kinda have a better flow just with the writing pad.
Do you take notes throughout the day? Like you're in the grocery store and a thought occurs and then you take a note either on a notepad or on your phone or something like that?
Yeah, sometimes I do that and little envelopes and stuff like that. So then, later on, either, hopefully I remember to do it like later on in the day and sit down and do it. Otherwise, sometimes I'll just find this little envelope or some little piece of scrap of paper that I've written something down on. And hopefully there's enough there so I get the context and remember where it came from and where it was going. So, yeah, I definitely do that.
Do you have a specific way for organizing your notes? Uh, maybe it's,
Um,
I don't know if I'd call it pre-writing, but some sort of way to get them together before you put it into the larger work you're working on.
yeah, it's kind of similar. I do have notepads, and so sometimes I'll go through a notepad, um, and then go to the next notepad, or sometimes I'll lose a notepad. I was writing on it somewhere and left it on the kitchen table or wherever, and so then I have to find it. So then I have to go kind of gather things up because yeah, that's how inspiration works, right? It's just like you're going through life and all of a sudden just that's the whole relax thing about it, you're not feeling pressure and all of a sudden just something pops into your head and so you just gotta write it down then before you forget, or later on you're going, "Oh, no, what was that?" I forgot. And then you
Where do
gotta
you
try to
think
remember it again.
where do you think those ideas come from?
Well, I don't know, they come from your heart, I would say, and then, of course, there's things that happen during the course of life that, inspire thoughts, and you go, "Oh, what was that?" "Why did that person do that?" Or, "That's a unique perspective," and then you kind of punch it into wherever it applies in your life. And so there are little things that can stimulate you, but sometimes it just comes out of your heart, just down in there somewhere, it just pops up. And so that's pretty cool.
What, what's your process for publishing?
My first book, I wrote a book called If You Want to Grow Rich, Plant a Tree. And that's biblical insights to growing wealth, growing residual income. And so that one I just self-published and like I didn't know what I was doing. I just had a vision to write this. I had some insight and so I wrote it, I got it written down, and then once I got it published and then I realized, I thought it was just gonna sell itself. It's like I saw somebody doing an ad recently on Facebook and they're all, "Oh, you write this book and it'll sell itself." No, they do not. They do not sell themselves. And so, I didn't sell one. And so I kinda realized I didn't know how to market. And so, that was just at that moment, it was just over my head and I just go, "Okay, I'm just not gonna cross this bridge." And so, now I'm learning to market. My second book, the Hosea book, um, I'm learning. I decided to apply myself to learn marketing, and so I'm learning. So I submitted that one to TBN, so it's the publishing branch of Trinity Broadcasting Network, and they call themselves Trilogy BN something, I forget. Um, but I submitted it to them and they liked it, and so it's kind of a hybrid, you know, self-publishing type thing. So that's what I did for that one, and I got more coming, and we'll see how they go. I was talking to somebody who was soliciting me this morning, making me an offer, so, I'm just kinda tossing that around, and, we'll see what the future holds, but that's how I did my first 2.
Okay. Have you used for either of those? Did you use Amazon to publish it, or you self-published through a different place?
Yeah, the first one dang, I can't remember the name, I totally know what it is, but anyway, the second one, of course, was TBN.
Mm.
Outskirts Press, that's what I did my first one, And so then the second one is TBN.
And when you say it's a hybrid of self-publishing and publishing, does that mean it's a publishing house that publishes it through like Amazon KDP or something like that? Or do they have their own press?
Right. So yeah, I believe they have their own press. I'm not exactly sure how. Yeah, they have their own press. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And so, you retain the rights, but they work with you. They help you with the editing and the cover and stuff like that, so that it's a professional looking book.
Okay.
And so with my Hosea book, I was very happy with it. The only thing that I was challenging was the cover, because I had a certain cover. I had, the A cover and the B cover, and I ended up going with the B cover because the A cover, I had artists working on it. And so, I learned some things about artists, and that is you can't give them too much information. You kind of give them the basics and then just let them create, because as I tried to give them too much information, they overloaded, and just kind of crashed on me. And so then finally, like the one that I got some new art after I got the cover decided on with my publisher. So then she felt the pressure was off, right? And she's all, okay, now I could do it. And she did a really good cover. So I will redo the cover at some point.
Okay. The first book I published, I used a self-publishing house, which is where you as the writer pay them and then they do whatever book package you purchase. Like they'll do however much amount of editing you paid for, and then the cover and the ISBN and the formatting. And then for the subsequent books, I used Amazon KDP and Kindle and all that. And I like the ability you have on Amazon to switch things around. So if you have a cover and you want to change it, there's nothing to go through other than making sure it fits the parameters of the program to put it in through Amazon. And you can use your own cover. You can use a cover someone else made. You can use a template from Amazon. And then if you ever are looking through your book, you're reading it or whatever, and you see you missed a parentheses or a quotation mark, or you dropped a comma where you wanted a comma or whatever type of little thing that you're always going to find when you read back through, that
Right.
you can change it yourself and upload those changes pretty easily. So as far as self-publishing goes, I really like the features that Amazon has for self-publishing houses. I have that one experience with it, and I think that the writer is the product more than the book. That is, they're selling something to you as the writer. They're not out there selling the book to make money on that. Although they do make money when the book sells,
Right.
they make more of it. They would make more of the revenue through a self-publishing house than on Amazon. Amazon takes less amount from your royalty than a self-publishing house, in my experience. I haven't had the experience where a publisher said, hey, we want to give you this money to write this book, and then we'll give you this much of the royalties when it sells. I haven't had that experience yet. Or one that they say, we're going to take care of the marketing, and all you have to do is show up at these times and you get paid for it. Usually it's the other way around when you get the solicitations, which is, do you want to be in this book fair? It's going to be at this time, at this place. Are you interested? And you go, sure. Who does the travel? And they're like, oh, you pay for the travel, you pay for the booth, and you pay us to be there, and then you can just do your book signing there. I go, okay.
Right.
So
Right.
and that I'm sure probably works for marketing, but I'm not. That's not something I've been willing to do yet.
Mhm.
So I'll just settle for me and my mom buying copies, and then we'll see how it works.
Right. Right. That's good. That's interesting, though, what you said about Amazon. So, like, if you're going over your book for 10 or 20 years and kind of making adjustments over the years, you could add whole chapters and stuff and have a whole different book after 20 years. That's kind of funny thought.
Yeah, it lets you do different printings of it too. I mean, it's print on demand, but it lets you do different editions. So you could say this is this book 5 years after it's this edition, second edition. So some things are changed. It does give you a lot of control as a writer, and it gives you a professional looking book because you get to choose the size of it and the paper, the font, all that. Yeah, I recommend it. It's a little bit of a learning curve because you have to learn how to use the program, but
Hmm.
I think it's worth it. As far as if somebody came to you, like if Penguin came to you and said, "We would like to give you 500,000 up front, and then we want to market in your book, and we'd like you to do this book tour and all that." That's a different thing.
Hmm.
That's not Amazon. So it's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you
I
have
like
to
it.
be a pretty recognized author for them to approach you like that.
Yeah, if you build your stuff up on maybe on social media and you go to a publisher and you already have a following, maybe that makes a difference. But
Right.
I'm not sure how much the advertising on social media matters. I don't know. I guess you could see it in your sales numbers, but I'm not sure how much it matters to a publisher. I guess money talks in the world we're living in.
Right. Yeah. If they're confident that your audience is going to buy so many books. I was talking to another author the other day, and he says he's got an email list of 12,000. So the publisher he works with, as is pretty confident when he sends out an email that he's going to sell X many books. And so that definitely he going from his first book and moving forward, he went through all the challenges most of us face in our first book. And, but then as he went forward, having that audience really kind of boosted the whole inspiration of the publisher to go with his book because it pretty much guarantees he's going to sell so many books.
How much time do you spend now on marketing then, since you said you're looking into the marketing more?
Well, right now, I'm still learning, but obviously things have changed. I wrote my first book in 2006, I believe it was, and so things have changed a lot since then. But right now, I'm just focusing on social media influencers, right? Podcasts and stuff like that, and that's what I'm doing. So just the people I think that are going to like the book and of course share it with their audience, then I kind of focus on that. But then, I like just giving them out to people because there's people that just love to read and you give them a book and it makes their day. I gave one away yesterday and the girl was just so happy, so some people just get elated by giving them a book, and that makes you feel good.
Do you do ebooks as well?
I've got it on Kindle, so
Okay.
you can get my Hosea book on Kindle.
And then the website, do you do the website yourself?
Somebody maintains it for me.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good looking website. It's bright. That's half of it is easy on the eyes. So
Right.
good.
Yeah, good. I like it. I'm glad you like it. I've got ideas for change in the future, but for now, I'm happy with it.
When you're putting your writing together, do you have a group of people that you send it to when you get to not really an editor, but more of somebody just that reads it and is able to give you comments on it, just to see if it's tracking, if it makes sense to a different person that's reading it beside yourself? You write a book and you end up reading it 20 times yourself, and there could be things you miss.
Oh yeah, you definitely read over your own mistakes. So you have to give it to somebody. My last one, my primary editor was mom, so she edited the Hosea book, and then I had a couple other friends read it, and I guess you think about, and then I sent it to the publisher TBN. They did the official edits, but I also sent it through Grammarly, of course, but you need people to read it. You need people to, because they feel it, and really, that's my writing. I think about, emotion. So my kids did acting, and, so I was in a few of their acting classes. I went and kinda checked it out and watched, and so, one of their teachers one day said something that really made a big impact on me, and he talked about the moment before, and so whenever you come into a scene, something was happening before that scene, right? And so the people are carrying the thoughts, the emotions, all that stuff into the next scene, and so, I think about that a lot as I'm writing, and and a lot of people commented on it, and as I've had other people ask me to edit their work, that's what I think, because um people are feeling stuff, and it's important that you communicate that emotion. At least it's important to me. And so the people who appreciate that love my book. Some people want to read all of that in themselves. And so those people don't like my book as much. And so that's a small percentage. Nevertheless, um, I'm really shooting for communicating the emotion that's going on there. So that is a huge driver, as I'm writing.
When you're reading over some other people's writings, what's your process for that? Do you print it out and read it? Are you reading it on the computer? Do you do notes in the margin? What's
Yeah,
your
I
deal?
like to get comfortable. So I like to have it printed. So yes, definitely printed. That way I can carry it around and get comfortable. Um, my eyes get tired quicker in front of a computer, and things go blurry. I'm pretty athletic, so I can only sit for so long before I need to go out and sweat somewhere, get some kind of exercise. But I like to get comfortable, so I like it printed, and then I'll just scribble all over it, whatever
Yeah.
my thoughts are.
Yeah, it's exciting to get that back from people when they're reading your work. So when I do it, I approach it with the idea of it means something to me. So hopefully it means something to them. So I'm going to put my time into it and then do comments like a person just reading would write, like don't open that door, or what's going to happen next, these type of comments. And then
Mhm,
other things of just questions of, I wonder why this person did this. And then if I see an issue, like something that someone does that's out of character, then I would
mhm,
say that, this seems out of character for this character. And then very lightly, if there are like spelling errors or something, I'll note it just because I'm there. But for me to note a spelling error of somebody, it's got to be pretty egregious because I'm not the best speller. So it's, it's just one of those things while you're passing over it, you might as well use a different color ink to show, you know, maybe this should be a comma or there should be quotation marks here or something like that, because I would
uh-huh.
want to know that of my own work too.
Yeah, yeah, so that'll bug you sometimes, but yeah, mostly, it's content, right? And,
Yeah.
all the other stuff can be fixed by your software, Grammarly, or whatever. But, it depends on what people are doing too. Not everybody has that, and sometimes, it's just, but nevertheless, if it bothers you, like you said, then you write it. Otherwise, I tend to kinda skip over that stuff.
Hmm. With the things you write, is there a common thread that you can see through them, whether you thought about it or not? Like something that connects all of your writing together, some theme or idea?
Um, that's funny. I think I'm pretty eclectic. I'm all over the place. I've got all kinds of creative things just coming from all different directions, it seems. So I don't think there is a thread. I'm not like I wrote a romance novel, but I'm not a romance writer. I don't think I'll write another one. Um, but I've got other things that I want to do. My next project. Well, I've got a couple things. I've got self-help, personal growth stuff. I've got um, I've got Bible stuff, and I've got really the next project I want to do is a children's like middle school book, and that I would also do the screenplay for it. So I don't know if I mentioned, but I've got this. I just finished the screenplay for my Hosea book, and so I've got a couple editors looking at that right now. So I expect that to be in movie form before too long.
So that then you wrote the script for that for the book you wrote?
Yeah, and the thing is like originally, it came to me as a movie, and so I saw it as a movie, and so I was just kind of stuck in the middle though between book and movie, and so my tenses were crazy all over the place, and so I finally just said, "Okay, I need to do the novel first. That's gonna be easier, and then I'll make it into a movie." And so that's what I had to do.
Now, having done that, do you think it's easier to do the novel first or the script first?
Yeah, that's crazy, and it's different too, As you're
Yeah.
writing the book, you wanna show and not tell, but there's some stuff that works telling, it just works, and the people can engage their imagination and stuff, but then you can't do that in a movie, there's some stuff that you just can't, that you can't do that, and so you have to write it in a way to show it literally and find a way to make that happen or else it just gets excluded. And um, so some stuff does there are some stuff that's missing. I notice, in the screenplay. And so it's really up to the actors to be able to communicate that. And so, my thoughts are, yeah, you got the script, but you also want to read the book because the
Mm.
script, really tells you what's going on. But, as I touched on before, the emotion's not always there, right? Some of it is, but a lot of it is missing. Um, and I couldn't see how to put it in because you're just kind of describing action. And
Yeah.
so that leaves it up to the actors to make that happen.
Yeah. I didn't realize until writing, trying to write some scripts of how different it was than writing novels and how important the director and actors are. That it basically you're writing instructions or suggestions, and then the
Yeah.
director is going to do what the director wants. The actor is going to do what they want and what the director will let them do, and it could come out differently than you think it is in your mind's eye. So it's I think that writing script in that script format is important, and I think it makes writing your novel writing better. And I think novel writing is made better by writing script. I think they all complement each other, but they are very different. And yeah, I'm glad I realized that, because before I just thought, if you write a book, you just make a movie out of it. It's no big deal. But
Uh-huh.
it
Right.
is a big deal. It is a big deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a set of instructions like you said, and so you are very much dependent, and there's a lot to do with the skill of the producer and the actors. It gives you a whole different perspective on, the B and C and A grade movies,
yeah.
and especially, Christian movie makers have got a really bad reputation of making like C movies, you know. So um that's something, but there's been some improvements there. There's definitely been some improvements. And so I'm looking for that standard, obviously, um, as putting my screenplay out there.
Yeah, it's something when you go through it and you have that different perspective of it, where now you can, when you look at TV shows, movies, whatever, you're thinking more along the lines of a script writer, where you look at it and go, "Oh, that's good writing," or "That's bad. They missed something there," or "Why'd they put that in when they should have put it in back here?" And how come the director let this happen? Or just you can see the power of good and bad acting, especially when you see a good actor with bad actors and you go, "Oh, that's that's what it's like to steal the scene." There is that person is so much better of an actor than these other people that phew, it's tough. Casting is important.
Yeah.
Have you for marketing your script, or how have you what steps have you taken so far to try to get it into the pipeline for movies?
I've sent out one email, and what their response was, what we need is somebody to make a little, couple minute short little
Mm,
teaser thing, and that's what
proof of
we looked
concept.
at. So, I've just been kind of mulling over that and just trying to come up with the right questions. I guess I need to ask myself the right questions, so I can have the right answers. And so, anyway, I'm kind of working through that, and until I get it back from at least one of my editors, that gives me a little bit of time to kind of wrestle with, my next step there.
Yeah,
So
it's exciting.
I've definitely got a lot of questions as about how to proceed. I'll say that.
There's some meetup type groups. Meetup.com is its own thing, but there are other, like Film Bar has meetings at places around the US. I think there's, local meetings of that where you get it with industry people, whether it's the behind the scenes people, directors, music, all that. That's good for making connections. I found that there's a whole world of that out there, especially where you are. So it might be interesting just to talk to people about doing those log lines and proof of concept pieces, or maybe it's even go to a film school and try to get some film students to do it, and film and drama mixed together and see what they can come up with just for that,
Wow,
that short
that's an
teaser of it.
interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Um, yeah, when I was doing my cover art, I was for my book, I was thinking about doing that. And let's see, at one point, I do have a children's poetry book I want to write for little kids, just fun poems. Um, And so I was kind of soliciting artists at one point, and it was interesting the different responses I got, and some were all like, "Oh, that's cool, have a contest or whatever." I forget exactly how I worded it, but some kind of contest type thing to see who it was. And, some of them were into it and others were all, "Hey, you know what? I'm here to make a living, you know? This isn't a freebie thing, If you wanna
Yeah.
hire me, you can, but I'm not doing freebies for you." So, it's kinda interesting to see the whole spectrum there. Um
Yeah, it's nice to pay people when you can,
Right,
and that's the place they are in their career, and then the place you are for trying to get something done is not the same place, so it's not a match. But certainly, like a contest at a even if it was a high school, a middle school, wherever, just
right.
it would be minimal money to sponsor a picture contest or something. You put the poems out there and they can write or create a picture for each one or whichever one they want, and then you just have the contest that way. I mean, I remember in elementary school being in a poster contest for like an anti-littering campaign, and the grand prize was $25. Now, present
Hmm.
value on money, that would probably be pretty good, but I mean, it was a lot of money at the time to me, being in whatever second or third grade. So it's I think you find that, and then it helps them because they win whatever part of the contest, but they also get their work published in a book about poetry, and that also helps you because maybe they're going to buy that book at least, and it helps them because other people will buy it and they get to see their artwork, and then eventually you get to that part where you can pay an artist and be a little more particular about what you want, a little more direction, if you will. And then, that's just makes the world go round, I think.
Yeah, if you think about it, there's a lot of talent out there. There's people that, there's kids out there that started drawing when they were 2 years old, and they've been drawing every day of their life um, since since then. And by the time they get to high school, they've got some pretty good skills. So it's not like you're just going to get trash. You can find some very talented people there. Um, Even when I was in college, I remember I was eating in the cafeteria with some guys, and they were talking about this guy who was like, didn't have to take notes, didn't have to study. He would just get A's on all the pre-med classes. And so they saw him in class and he wasn't taking notes, he was doodling. So he's drawing cartoons. And they go, What are you doing? You're just doodling." And he goes, "Well, I'm not going to write notes. I'm not gonna take notes." Like, it was like the stupid question. And so, that guy, I'm sure he's got some skills. He just doodles through the whole class and gets an A on the test. So I'm kind of curious what his art would look like.
Yeah. I think you just you got the AI idea too. You could do AI and get some pictures for it. You've got kids, get them to draw some pictures, get your mom to draw a picture. I've
Yeah.
got a book I haven't published yet that is pictures that my mom drew for a kids book. So yeah, it's you can find a way out there. And if you're reading a kids book on poetry, I think that you make it more accessible by making the equivalent of a garage band photos or pictures with it. Like I
Right.
can do
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
It's you may never do that, but like if you back in the day when you were listening to Nirvana for the first time, and then you went back and listened to like their first album, Blue, and you think, I could play that. That's just power trio, power chords. I can play that. And then you play it a little and you're like, yeah, I can play that. But there's also some more underlying complicatedness going on that you don't see on the surface, which makes it have depth and it's more interesting. But you certainly can connect with it easier when you think it's accessible to you like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So simple art.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cave drawings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Some of those are very cool in children's books, especially.
Do you have a time that you're looking to get that published, the poetry one, or are you?
I do not. That's not on a timeline at all. I think that's in a place where I have time to more relax, and I don't know. I
Are
I've
you
I've
working on the poetry for it? Do you have
I
it
you
done
know what?
already, or?
In college, I have ideas. I have stuff in my head, and that I haven't written down. I guess I've scribbled in a few places. I guess I can say that. But I haven't really applied myself, but I guess the idea came. I had a thing in college, an assignment with one of my creative writing teachers, and he had us write a poem, and he just kind of gave us the format. He said, "Do this." We wrote, and he said, "Do this now and do this." And so I forget what it was called, and but it came out really good. It's really funny, and So, and I like it. Just there's so much cool things in nature with cats and dogs and puppies and all those things that are fun and kids can relate with, and you can do rhymes. It's just so much fun, it sounds like. And but I think I have some other things that are like more front burner. I've got it on the back burner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's it takes time for those things to bubble up and then demand attention. Before a few years ago, I was doing science fiction stuff mainly, science fiction novellas, and then I was like, oh, I'll take a break from that for a little while and do some poetry. And I was like, I'm just going to do this one poetry book, and then it'll be out of my system. And then for the past 4 years, I've been working mainly on poetry. So
Uh-huh.
I I would think of myself as a poet more these days than a writer of stories and books. But I can see that part, the story part coming back to be demanded attention. Like where
Uh-huh.
it's like, look, you got this idea and it needs to come out now. So the story is ready. Or as Andre 3000 from Outcast would say, some time must be invested for this to be manifested.
Yeah, I remember when I was in my creative writing class in college, we had one poet in there. And so, on up front, I'm looking at all the work I did, and he's got like three or four poems. I'm like, what has this guy been doing this whole
Yeah.
semester? But,
Yeah.
as I spend a little bit of time contemplating that and doing some poetry myself, you get to appreciate what goes into those three or four poems. And it's definitely there's a lot that goes
Well,
into it.
I do think simply poetry is easier. And maybe that's just the type of person you are or the place you are in your life as to what's easier at whatever time. But
Uh-huh.
for me now, it's obviously easier to write one poem than it is to write a chapter in some ways. In some ways, you could argue that it's more difficult. But for me, poetry is more of a connection with some creative force than writing is, than writing a book. And I can still feel that when I'm writing a book, when you get to that point where you're a character saying something or something's happening and it feels like it's writing itself, that like I'm not pushing it, I'm just trying to keep up.
Mhm.
And then in poetry, I feel like that much more. It's much more concentrated. I think the emotion is much more direct. I think poetry helps your dialogue when you're writing books because those types of things matter to you. The measure and tone of somebody saying something. And it's I'm thankful that there's different types of writing, just like the script writing and the book writing is different. And I'm glad I've tried both of those. In the poetry, it's just that connection is pretty great and
Mhm.
it's always there. And I'm not sure if it's always there because I just got lucky or if it's always there and because you pay attention to it, it pays attention to you. What are your views on inspiration, the muse, where those ideas come from? How do you
Yeah,
feel?
that's great. That's great. 'Cause, just listening to you talk and just making the comparison in my head, with prose, there's definitely, a rhythm and a cadence that happens oftentimes with the prose. It's gotta flow, for people for it to work. Um, and it the flow is in there too, but with a poem, it's a lot closer to a song. It's like you're singing a song, and so it's a whole it's a whole different rhythm. It's a whole different way of communication, and I'm trying to find words for that, and I on the surface, I was saying deeper, but it's not deeper. It's just different. It's its own unique animal, you know?
It's a different
And
language. Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
think you're
is. It's
right
a
on that.
different language. And
Yeah.
you know, there's aspects and just the way they both touch your emotions, but the poem is just can be more like a song where it just kind of, you know, it's easier to memorize and just kind of repeat, you know, and just kind of just get in that the flow and the emotion of it. It seems just a little bit easier, just like singing a song.
Yeah, and for me, songwriting and poetry have a lot of similarities, maybe more similarities than writing prose versus either. They do seem different to me, and I think that's with that musical element, not to say poetry doesn't have the cadence, tone, pitch, all that, but it's maybe poetry to me is more emotion. Song, and that doesn't mean that other things don't have emotion. Song has emotion, but it's more to me the feel of it. So
Hmm.
emotion for poetry, feel for songs, and then thinking or visualizing for prose. And those are all mixed together. I mean, each one of those things has the other. But
Hmm.
if you're saying what's the main character of this, what's the main character of poetry? I think it's emotion. Main
Hmm.
character of music is feeling, and main character of writing is visualizing. Hmm. I have to think about that some more.
It's hard to define, isn't it? It's really something that's so hard to define what the differences are. You can see them, you can feel them, but how do you find words for those differences? Is it just it's really challenging.
Yeah. So then, on the front burner for you now is prose. What
Mhm.
are you working on now?
So, well, I guess what I just started, you know, things just come pop in. I have to be careful. You know, I have to exercise some discipline on where how I spend my time. It can be hard because I get all these creative thoughts just popping up, and I want to chase them all. But so I started writing. You know, kind of what is it? Something how to do excellence. I forget what the title of it is. 25 steps to excellence or something like that.
Okay.
Um, so I just started writing that the other day. So I thought it was going to be like 10 and it ended up being 25. And I think it's still growing. So that's something I just wrote. But I think the next major project, I want to republish my If You Want to Grow Rich because I didn't market it at all, zero. And so I'm kind of mulling over how I should do that. But my next new project is my middle school book novel, which I will make into a screenplay also. And I'm calling it Lily's Long Day. I'm naming it after my daughter. She's my oldest child, and she just has this had this super, you know, spunky little vivacious spirit as a little girl, you know, and that's what made her attractive for commercials. That's how we were able to do some acting stuff. And so just I kind of came up with this, and it's a story. I call it Lily's Long Day. So it's one day, you know, action packed day in the life of this little middle school aged girl. And you know, and a lot of it was inspired by just the songs that my kids like to listen to, you know, driving down the road and stuff. I was
Mm.
listen to their songs, their music, and I get little bits of inspiration from those. And so, um, I could sit down when I'm ready. I could just sit down and do it. I've started it, but um, I hit a roadblock. And it's not a real roadblock. It was a small roadblock, but nevertheless, I felt it wasn't quite the season for that.
Mm.
And so but in the next year or two, I'm going to pick it back up and finish it. So,
Yeah,
but
that's good. It's good to have
that's the
things in the
next
pipe.
thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's good to have things, ready to be worked on. The hard part is deciding, am I not working on it just because I'm procrastinating, or am I not working on it because it's still baking?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's the thing.
So I'm not feeling the procrastination. That's a bad thing, right? That's a bad energy. I'm feeling like it's more of a timing thing. So that's where I'm at. But I'm really looking forward. I'm really excited about it. I just haven't got the 100% go button on it.
What's the best way for people to follow your work?
Obviously, we have my website, just josephdescans.com. You can go there and see that. And then, of course, you can find me on Facebook. And then what's that connected to? Instagram. I've got some other cool stuff. One of the things that I do as a result of owning a tree service is I rescue cats from trees. And
Oh,
so I've got a YouTube channel, Two Cat Rescuers. And so we got a lot of cool cat stuck in tree rescues on there. I think I got about 20 of them right now. So that's pretty
wow.
fun. You can follow me there. Yeah, those are cool. My favorite one is number 10, Kibbles. And so that one kind of has all the elements there. What was it? Christmas Eve. So I had all my kids in the car. We're going to grandma and grandpa's house, and we got a call for a cat rescue. So we rescued a cat rescue on the way to dinner. So that was pretty cool.
What's the number one way to get a cat out of a tree? Is it just a ladder and go up and grab it, or is there a better way?
Well, I climb trees, and so I usually climb the tree, but sometimes, cats are different. Sometimes if they're not too high, I've got pole pruners with extensions, and so I have a cat pole, which is basically a hook that's, not pointy, it's a soft hook. And so I'll just put extensions on that and poke at them a little bit, and sometimes that'll get them out. They'll just get freaked out. And so I did one. I showed up to this cat rescue. The lady waited 3 days. She kept calling me and talking to me. Finally, she wanted it to come down Sunday morning on the way to church, right? I had to stop and rescue this cat. And so I put a few poles together. I poked at it. It took less than 2 minutes. And it would have made a great video because where I was standing, it ran down the branch right under where I was standing and went right over my head. So I almost fell over backwards, like watching it, right? And I had the camera on my head mounted on my helmet.
Hmm.
And so it would have made great footage. But, afterwards, she's all, she was mad at me. She's like, you charged me this much money. It only took you 2 minutes to get the cat out of the tree. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's the difference between an expert. You couldn't do it in 3 days. It took me 2 minutes. But anyway, so when you can, so I didn't make a video for that one. She was mad at me. She called me and felt she got ripped off, and so she wouldn't let me use her footage. Um, but anyway, so sometimes you can just poke them with a stick. I've thrown ropes at them. Like so I went up an apartment, in the balcony, and the cat was lower in the tree. So I threw a rope at it. That freaked it out, and it ran down the tree. But sometimes, you have to climb up there and get them, and they're trying to get away from you. And so I've spent like 2.5 hours on a cat rescue once in a
Wow.
massive tree, like this giant pine tree. And it was like 60 feet to the lowest branch up in Laguna Mountains. And and so it climbed out on this limb. And so I had to climb up high and tie in because you can't climb out on the branch. And so then that holds your weight up in the top, and then you can climb out on the branch. And so then I did that, and then the cat ran over to another branch. And then I had to retie it, do it all over again. So after a few
Wow.
times of doing that, I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work. And so I just tied a rope to the branch that it was on, cut the branch. The cat rode the branch down to the ground and got
Cat
off.
elevator.
Yeah, so, that's the worst case scenario. I've had to do a few of those. But so basically, it's up to the cat. Depends on the cat. I've had a
Mm,
couple come to me, I get up in the tree and then they come right to me. Not very many, 2 or 3, but some of them will just sit there and wait for you, and then of course if you got a feral cat, then, you better
that's
look
a different
out
story.
because
Yeah.
yeah, they can be pretty mean once you get close to them.
Yeah. The story of the lady getting mad about it reminds me of this is an abbreviated version of a story that's not quite exactly how I've heard it, but this factory had to shut down because something was wrong with its main generator. And they called this generator service to come out, and generator service comes out and they're done in 5 minutes, and they charge them $15,000. And the guy goes, "What in the world? It's 5 minutes of work. You do $15,000 for 5 minutes of work." And the guy goes, "No, no, it's $14,999 to know which bolt to turn and $1 to turn the bolt."
That's right.
So it's
That's
okay.
right.
I messed it up the way I said it, but you get it. You can
Well,
fix
I
that up.
was I work around pools sometimes doing trees, and so I was at this house and, and I don't wanna leave the pool looking like a mess, so I get the best out, and I was on this working on this pool, and I was getting really frustrated, and then so I quit, and then the pool guy shows up, right? And he gets out his net, and he creates these currents, and he got all the stuff rounded up in a corner and scooped it right up. It took him less than 10 minutes. Like, it would have taken me hours, and there's no way I could have done as good of a job as he did, and so it really makes you appreciate professionalism. And so, and so I know a lot of people appreciate me when I come to their house and I just go there and get it done and not breaking a bunch of stuff and the tree looks good, et cetera, et cetera. And so on that day, I really got an appreciation for the pool guy.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, professionalism is good. Seeing somebody that knows how to do the job is fun to watch. And then being able to do a job that you like is fun to do the job. That's why I'm glad there's so many different types of writing, because you can practice at them. And when you start, you're not that great. Likely, you're not that great, but then you can get better at it and you can see how you're getting better at it. It makes it easier to come back to it.
Yeah.
So your links will be in the show notes. I have all those links that you were talking about. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we didn't, or any thoughts you have in closing?
I don't know. I enjoyed this. I like the questions and the stuff you got into. It's definitely um cooler. It's like the definitely focusing on the writing and the skill of writing and all the dynamics of writing. And so I think you've covered that deeper than the other podcasts I've been on, and
Hmm.
that's really cool. So I'm feeling pretty good. I like the way everything went here.
Yeah, it's good. I'll as I said, links will be in the show notes for people that want to do it or want to go check it out. And maybe we talk again in the future.
Okay, sounds cool.
All right. I'll talk to you on the other side of this musical exit here.
Okay.